he had made his decision on how to close in on his quarry. She owned the cafe and had been advertising in the local paper for a combination dishwasher, waiter, and handyman. Jonas was presently unemployed and happened to be an expert in the field of dishwashing. Hell, he thought, he could have gotten his Ph.D. in the art if such a degree were offered. It would have been far more useful than the Ph.D. he had gotten in Renaissance history a few years back. He had never been certain if pursuing the kind of career the history degree had established for him would have killed him outright or just driven him insane. A sense of self-preservation had kept him from experimenting. Once upon a time he had come very close to becoming a murderer because of his talent. He had decided then that the fascination of history was better left to those who had less affinity for it than he had. So he'd washed a lot of dishes in the last few years, mostly bar glasses. He'd also served a lot of liquor, which should have given him the skills of a waiter, and there was no doubt that he'd picked up a few skills as a handyman. He thought of the knife packed away in his duffel bag in the back of the Jeep. He was a real Renaissance man, he thought wryly. All the benefits of a classical education coupled with a lot of experience in the real world. What more could a potential employer ask? 400 years ago he wouldn't have had any trouble at all getting work. His mouth was edged with a hint of laconic amusement as he reached into the pocket of his jeans and curled his long, lean fingers around a small circlet of gold. As soon as he touched it, the earring seemed to warm his hand, and a faint, tantalizing sensation that was both peaceful and pleasant and oddly anticipatory tingled deep within him. Jonas had discovered that the earring was as effective as a shot of tequila or a couple of bottles of beer when it came time to soften the rough edges of a hard day. He withdrew the tiny piece of feminine jewelry and examined it as it lay innocently in his palm. It wasn't the first time he had looked at that earring and tried to fathom its compelling mystery. The truth was, he hadn't let it get out of his reach in the 2 months he had had it. Jonas felt distinctly possessive and protective toward the earring. The odd thing was that the possessive feeling extended to the woman who owned it, even though he had never met her. Somehow, in a way he couldn't yet explain, she was part of his future. And now it was time to meet her. The compulsion to locate the owner of the golden earring had brought Jonas a couple of 1,000 miles from a Mexican waterfront bar to Sequent Springs. The distance he had traveled meant little to him. He would have come from the other side of the world to find the woman who owned it. He had gotten only brief glimpses of her the night she had lost the piece of jewelry, but he remembered well the copper fire of wild curls that framed huge eyes and a finely boned face. He recalled, too, her soft, slender, feminine shape in the golden light spilling through the open door of the cantina. She had never seen his face. Verity Ames had been too busy fleeing back to the safety of her hotel. He could still hear the echo of her high-heeled sandals disappearing into the darkness. It had taken Jonas a week to find out the name of the earring's owner. In true Mexican tradition, money had crossed palms just to get that elemental piece of information. That had been the easy part. It had taken nearly 2 months to track her down to Sequent Springs, California. All the while the earring had burned in his pocket. When Jonas had picked up the tiny local newspaper, he'd been pleased to find the ad for the position at the No Bull Cafe. It had seemed like fate. Working for someone was one hell of a good way to learn her secrets, and he badly needed to explore the mysteries of Verity Ames. His future was tied up with those mysteries. Jonas stood at the edge of the lake, his fingers moving absently on the earring, and wondered what it would be like to work for this flame-haired woman. One thing was certain, he decided. She was bound to be an easier proposition than some of his past employers. After all, she was small, female, and not yet 30. How much trouble could she give him? Dishwashing at the No Bull Cafe was going to be a piece of cake.